Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in just a few moments. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well and welcome to today's Preparation to Teach webinar. So we're going to be focusing on the 8202. Today's host will be myself, David Pye, one of the technical advisors for BSE. My colleague Rob Malander isn't on the webinar today, but his contact details are on the final slides. I'm also joined by colleague Saleem Vizram, lead industry manager, and lead moderator, Phil Walsh. We're presenting this webinar from home, so please excuse any unwanted background noise and any potential delay in slides. Many of you have now attended these webinars before, so you're probably quite familiar with the systems. But for those who may be new to the platform, please see the control panel on the side of your screen. You'll see a questions tab where you can type your questions, and a chat tab where we'll occasionally be leaving links to various documents throughout the webinar, or potentially at the end we'll drop several in. You'll also see a handout section which contains a copy of today's presentation and a PDF of those links that I've been discussing. So if you can go to there, you can download that document, and it has several useful links in. So there's quite a lot to get through, and there'll be some further reading after this session. So let's make a start and have a look at the agenda. And just before I click on the next slide, you'll notice there on the screen a copy of a survey link. So we'll send this out in the follow-up as well. But if you can make a note of that, it'd be useful, and try and fill it in at your earliest convenience. It's really helpful for us to get your feedback on how well these run, how useful you find them, and we can capture any further questions that we may be not able to answer today. So we can pick those up through the survey and any important feedback and any future support. So our agenda for today, we'll look at the handbook and the details within that, unit delivery using adaptable delivery planners, the formative assessment that you can use whilst running the program, an exam guide specification, where to find that, any contingency planning, employer involvement advice, synoptic assignments, standardization, moderation, lots of support and contact details coming towards the end, and then we'll open it up for questions. So what we wanted to do is try to get an idea of how many of you are brand new to this qualification, how many of you have run it before, no, never run it before, or you've run it a little bit before but still quite new to it. It'll just help us on this presentation gauge where we are. I can see most of you voting now. It seems to be that the majority have run it before but still feel quite new to the qualification. Okay, just a final moment and we'll close. So if we share those results, you can see that 28% say yes, 17% are very familiar. So some of this, for those 17%, may be quite basic, but you'll also have a chance to have a refresher and ask any questions at the end. But the vast majority have run it before but still feel quite new. So that's quite useful. Thanks very much for that. So hopefully we're back on the screen. So those who are brand new to this, we do have a first steps video. It's only 14 minutes long. It's really useful in just giving you a quick overview of what this qualification is all about. So a couple of key things in there, a couple of key links. So it's useful having a quick look at that when you get a chance. Another pack I'd recommend everyone gains access to each year, because it's updated, is a welcome pack. Another very helpful pack, which is as I say, updated each year and contains an overview of everything in the technicals. So it's always a great starting point. So let's have a look at the qualification handbook. So this is, if you're running the 802 or any technical qualification, it's always useful to start from this point because it points out key aspects to the qualification you'll be delivering. The two snips we've got on the screen there, the one on the left is against the level 3 technical in electrical installation, and it shows you the component numbers of the assessments. So 531 being the theory exam, 032 being the synoptic, and another component of the qualification is the employer involvement, which is 830. So on the opposite side of the slide, we can see the specification for the exam. So this is really helpful. We're often asked, what's in the exam? Where should we concentrate our efforts in teaching and learning? And as you can see, the exam there is broken down into the number of marks for each section and each unit. So if you look at principles of electrical science, 28% of the overall mark will come from that unit. So that'd be a useful one to concentrate on if you're doing some recap or reinforcement with the learners. Unit 301, planning and overseeing electrical work, just 4%. So it's not that you don't cover it, but it gives you an idea of how much revision you do in each of those areas. So looking at the units themselves in terms of delivery, that was assessment and an overview of the assessment required in the qualification. Then you'll see in the handbook the GLH associated with the delivery of each unit. So I've used a snip from plumbing for this one. So you can see cold water is 90 hours, hot water is 90 hours, environmental technology just 30. So again, it gives you an idea of the amount of delivery you will require to bring the learners up to speed on that particular topic. It is just a guide. You know, some groups will be quite advanced and move much more quickly through it. Some may find some content more challenging, and you may need to build in a little bit extra on some parts. So don't feel restricted by this GLH. It's a guide to support you, but you can adapt as you need to as you're delivering. So as regards teaching and learning, this is an excellent guide. So this is all about supporting excellent teaching and learning, and it's against the technicals. They're all on the resources page. Again, that's one of the links that we've included in the Word document. So they're all there. It's useful to access that and download that. Some great tips in there for delivery of these technical qualifications. So this is the actual delivery planner. So this is on our resources web page, and the idea here is that we put in some of the key dates are built in there. So you'll see sort of week 1, week 2, week 3. Below that, we've put in some information about booking window. This is a previous one. It's fully updated each year, so please access the most recent one. And on the left-hand side, you'll input your units that you're delivering. You don't have to follow the unit structure we've put together. It may follow logically to do that, but again, don't be restricted by that. So you might say week 1, we're doing induction. Week 2, it's a tour of the college or the workshops. Week 3, we start health and safety. Week 7, we start cold water. You may run 1 unit at a time. You may run 2 units side by side at different times. You can build all your activities into this. The other thing I like about this, and which is really key and has really helped the centres who've used it, if you input when you're running your synoptics, when your exams are, you can work backwards from that date. Because you know then the week before that, you probably want a revision week and some practice tests. So you need your delivery done the week before that, and you can start ensuring that you're going to cover all the content required. Hopefully you're taking this in, and if you have any questions, please type them away. We'll try to answer them as we're going through the webinar, but I'll probably pick the majority of those up at the end. Now this is an end assessed model. So the question often is, well, what do we do on the journey for the learner? Well, a previous document gives you lots of tips on the delivery of that, but you can carry out, and we strongly recommend you carry out your own formative assessments on that journey. So you can design your own, as many tutors do, and I used to do myself. or you may access some of the sample assessments that are available on the website. So we have those. We have full smart screen for these qualifications with the training manuals as part of that packages. We can show you those at the end. You can periodically set your own centre assessments and practical training activities. So using the training manuals, so you see that the learner's progressing in the workshop. So there are many opportunities and documents available for you to measure that journey for that learner to ensure that they're on the right path towards taking the assessment. Phil, if any key questions pop up at the time, if you're okay having a glance at those, and please do jump in if there's anything else you wish to add, or if there's any questions that need answering straight away. If not, we can save those.
No problem. I've got the questions open, so I'll jump in if need be. Thank
you very much, Phil. Thank you. So again, it's advisable you carry out some mock assessments in theory as well. So we do have a couple of past papers. Normally, it's only 2 at a time. There's also moderator reports from previous years. So there's a lot of information you can access to support yourselves as tutors and assessors, but also your learners. So please have a look at these and access these and build these into that adaptable delivery planner. So what you're looking to deliver and when, you can build this into your particular weeks. So information on the actual exam. Well, the first thing is these are dated entry exams with this qualification. The exams timetable is already out. You can find it on the resources page. We've highlighted it there on the left, and again, it's from the links that we've dropped in. And on the right, you'll see the actual dates for electrical and plumbing. That's just snipped from that timetable. So those dates can now be shared with learners, with full teams. You can put it on your delivery planner and you can be working towards that date, and the learners are aware when they will have their assessments on their theory. So I think it's really useful if you've got a dated entry exam that you know that date as early as possible, because everyone can work towards it. I've seen centres put these up, print them off, put them up in the classroom, in the workshop. So every day a learner comes in, they can see it, print it on Moodle, ask the learners to put it in the calendars, in the phones, as prompts, as key dates. So the exam specifications, I mentioned it slightly on an earlier slide, but there is a guide to the examination. So you will find, again, on the website, an actual guide, and there's an up-to-date snip on the left showing the exam guide on the 8202 webpage. And it gives further details about the marks in each section, the learning outcomes, the type of topics, and there's usually a couple of example questions in the back of those as well. So again, in terms of preparing yourselves and the learners for these exams, there's lots of information available to support with that. So important dates. I suppose a key difference to this qualification to VRQs, where it's very much you're delivering your planning, is there are very important dates for the technical. We've already discussed a couple in the exams, but we've also got synoptics. We've also got booking windows, so actual dates for booking these assessments. So it's key that you're aware that these exams still need to be booked. So your learners could be registered on the qualification, but you still need to book the exams. Now, it may be a different department, it may be your exams team who do this, that's fine. But please liaise with them and make an important note for yourselves that we can't miss any of these key deadlines. So there's a deadline for registrations, which has passed. You can still register now, but there'll be a late booking fee for that. The synoptics, there's a few key dates on those, but I'll mention those in a moment when we come to those slides. But there is this checklist. There's a link here. So when you download this form, you can get a direct link from here. Please make a note of those, print those off, put them in your workshops, in your classrooms, and so on. So employer involvement advice. So this is an up-to-date snip around employer involvement. Again, lots of questions pop up about employer involvement. I think there's a lot of confusion over it as well, because there's different requirements for T-levels and various different funding pots. What we're interested in here is meeting the requirements for the technical qualification, which is employer involvement. So we've pointed out there's a guide, and that guide will tell you what is and what isn't employer involvement, or what is classed. It will show you a planner and a tracker, which you can use to document your employer involvement. And there's also an exemplar of that tracker, so you can see how it's filled in. So that's a snip of the guide, and there's a key points there. The following activities meet the requirements for meaningful employer involvement. The question often is, how many hours? The hours are not stipulated because it's about getting engagement and meaningful involvement. That's the key thing. The problem when you put a certain amount of hours, it can, if you're not careful, just become a tick box exercise where once you've ticked off enough hours, you find you've covered that. It's about giving these young learners the opportunity to meet and have some employer involvement, because hopefully they'll be progressing into employment and apprenticeships, and in the past they've had no meaningful employer involvement at all, and that's been quite a leap then when they get the apprenticeship. So things like structured work experience or work placements, undertaking projects or exercises or assessments that you may have set with the input of an industry practitioner, learners taking units which are co-delivered by industry practitioners. So it could take the form of a guest lecture or a master class. You know, I know a lot of colleges, and I did myself run a lot of those anyway, bringing in people from industry even before these qualifications. So you may find you're already doing a lot of this up until now. So industry practitioners can also act as expert witnesses. So if a learner does some formative assessments in workshops, you can use them to support with making judgments and providing feedback on those exercises and projects. So there's lots of different ideas there, and you'll get an idea when you look at the exemplar. So here we are. This is the exemplar. And you can see it's quite straightforward, really. You know, the qualification, names, etc., contact details, and then the type of activities and some additional notes. So what we say is this is a planner. You complete this at the start of the year, complete your full planner of what you aim to do. Like with any plan, it could change. An employer could decide not to get involved, but you get a different employer. But we always recommend this is completed at the start of the course, so you know how you're going to meet these requirements, because it is part of the qualification, so it's important. So yeah, my recommendation is you download this, you get access, and you work on this now as a plan, and then try and implement as much of that plan as you can. So the actual synoptic assignments, I suppose that the biggest thing here is, if you're brand new to these qualifications, and you've delivered on MBQs and VRQs before, is that the assessment is different. It's very much different. Where previous centres have had a good experience is when they've realised it's very different and they've approached it with a different mindset. Where centres have been very familiar with previous methods and wanted to apply those and found it more difficult because it's very different. That document there that I've linked is really useful, the marking and moderation guide. I'm going to give you a few tips on this webinar, but there is a marking and moderation guide which adds further information. I said I'd share a couple of key dates, but there's a couple there, the 4th of January. So the synoptics are already out. They're already available for you to download and have access to. And we release them early, so centres can have a look. It gives you then the opportunity to see if you can get the materials, you can start planning. If there's any errors or potential errors, you can let us know. So we always remove or work on the synoptics after a month, after the centres have had a month or so to feedback, and we will release any updated synoptic on, I think it's the 4th of December, I think I've got it on the slide somewhere, and then it's available to be delivered from the 4th of January. So if you've downloaded it already, just be mindful that there may be some amendments to that based on feedback, and the latest version will be released in early December, so in just a few weeks. So it's unlikely to be massive changes, it's just where we've received some feedback. If you've not seen it yet, please do download it, have a look. We still have a potential errors form. If you spot anything there that you think's an error, please fill that form in and let us know. It's on the resource guide. If if you've got any questions about it, just come back to myself and Rob, and we'll try and support with that. There it is, the 2nd of December. I thought I had it on the slide somewhere. So there's a snip of the 2023 synoptic, and the key date for that is the 2nd of December. So there'll be an updated version. If we've had feedback and we need to amend it, that's when the updated version will go live. And there's the potential error notification form. So anything you think is an error or wrong or a problem, please let us know as early as possible. So synoptic marking, I said it's completely different. The best way to explain it, I think, is there's several tasks, sometimes 3, 4 or 5, but if we imagine 3 just for the purposes of this description, you'll have a desk-based activity, which is often research or materials lists and so on. You'll then have a practical activity, which is normally completing a product or some form of testing at level 3 usually. And then a third piece, which is usually some type of reflective activity. You don't mark those separately. You will document on an observation form what you're witnessing, but at that stage, you're not marking it. You're not giving it a score, a number. Once all the synoptic is complete, you then mark it as 1. So if you look on the right-hand side, this is how we're marking it. Recall of knowledge. What does that mean? There's a description of what it means below, and you'll put the learners in either band 1, 2 or 3. So poor to limited, fair to good, or strong to excellent. And then once they're in that band, you'll have a further think about where they sit in that band, and you'll score them at the top of the band or the bottom of the band. And you'll complete this for each assessment objective. So some best practice tips. If you're brand new to this, you can look at some of the past synoptics. You can look at the moderator reports. You could possibly run some. You could look at the marking yourselves, download the marking, have a go at some yourselves. Get used to standardizing across assessors. You may have multiple assessors. Consider how you can give feedback on performance when it's training. You don't give feedback as such on the synoptic at the end of the qualification, the end test, if you like. So standardization, there's a few interesting slides here. Once you've marked every learner, you'll have different marks for each learner. And you may have marked 15, 30, 45. You may have used multiple tutors to carry out that marking. You need to carry out standardization of that, because the first learner you marked, you may have been harsh, you may have been generous. Over a period of marking, it becomes a bit easier, like anything else. So at the end of all your marking, you need to carry out a bit of an activity to standardize. So this is just a very basic outline of how it would work. You'd mark the synoptics, the lead assessor or IQA would standardize. You'd possibly line them up from the highest marks to the lowest marks and adjust them as required. Then you'd complete that standardization declaration form. So on the right, you need to sign that, document it. That will need to be uploaded with the synoptics to say you've carried out that activity. And then you will submit those marks and evidence, but that will be based on your cohort size. And we've got a slide on that in just a bit. So there's additional support for marking and standardizing synoptic assignments. You can see on the left there, there's specific short webinars, recorded webinars on those parts of delivery. I've just took some snips from those. So you can see the top right hand corner, it shows you the marking grid and also little bubbles, little speech bubbles describing them. And the presenter on there will talk you through that, how to use that. Again, on the bottom right hand side, you'll see how that's then transferred to the form using the marking grid. And the final one there is common pitfalls. So they're always very useful when people have run these courses before to know what those common pitfalls were. So moderators sometimes see comments on the PO form and CRF form referring to whether the candidate has been a good student, a pleasure to teach. It's not about the judgment of the journey and personable about who they are. It's basic. It's associated with that marking grid. We also see evidence where we use language where the excellent performance, carried out very well, but they've used a middle band. Well, if you're using that language, which comes out of the high band, the marks should be out the high band. So they're the type of things that people kind of have got wrong in the past. But becoming familiar with this makes that whole process a lot easier. So further on from standardization, this year we have created an additional marking standardization video, and that's again on the website. That one's for electrical. We've got several others, and others are coming along as we speak. It's very similar to the ones on the previous slide. It's just using a past synoptic from electrical to make the same point. So it's you may get a little bit more from this because it's in context, but pretty much the message is the same. So when later on in the year, when you're on to your own standardizing of the assessments, you'll need to be uploading the information on the moderation portal. And again, we've got lots of guides for this. So there's an actual document talking you through requirements for uploading evidence for technical qualifications. We don't need to know that just now. We're still early in the year, but later on in the delivery of your qualification, there'll come a time when this needs to be uploaded. And going back to those specific dates, there are specific dates this needs to be uploaded by. So be mindful of that. You'll also have, and I'm sure Phil will back me up in just a moment, a visiting moderation as part of this as well. So there'll be extra guides there. And it may be your exams teams. It's normally another department who often carry this out, but it's useful for yourselves to know, if you're delivering on this program, what needs to happen and which departments you need to work with internally. Again, booking assessments, they do need to be booked even if a learner is registered. Some new centres have been caught out with this. But I think we registered the learner, don't look at booking the assessments. So be mindful, you do need to book the assessments. Again, if your centre has run technicals before, they'll know all this, but you may not know this as if you're first delivery staff, so or delivering this for the first time, should I say. But it's good to be mindful because you may need to prompt those other teams to make sure that they make that booking of the exam. So there's some further updates which have come out very recently, just some slight changes to dates. So we've got two dates there. Friday, the 19th of May is a closing date to submit marks for evidence to the moderation portal for all level 2 and level 3 technical qualifications. The 2nd of June is for optional units. We don't have optional units in our versions of technical. So it's a date on the left that's really key to us. So it's just an extra opportunity for us to try to remind everyone of that slight change to that date. So the submission deadlines for 2023. Another update is the sample sizes. We've increased slightly the sample sizes of evidence. So if you've got 20 or fewer candidates, you would upload all the evidence for all 20. When those numbers increase, the sample size, using sort of camera as an approach to quality assurance, they will decrease. Now, if there's some issues with the marking, we may ask for further evidence, excuse me, but these are the current sample sizes for 2023. So support, we do have a dedicated LinkedIn group. So there's an 8202 support group on LinkedIn. If you're on there, please do join. We try to use that for sharing best practice, asking questions, peer-to-peer support from colleges, providers and centres. So if it's something you use, please do search that. There's a link to it. There's a link on the Word document that we've shared. So yeah, please access that and start sharing questions, sharing good practice. If you've run it before and something worked really well, you've spotted something that maybe other centres haven't, please use that platform for sharing that. Textbooks, there's a lot of new textbooks from Hodder. So Hodder are a publisher. We endorse these, but they're produced by Hodder. There's several updated books. They normally use a single book to cover the apprenticeship and the technical and previous VRQs. There's a full range, and we've also got ebooks now. So I think they're called the Boost, which you can see on the screen. Please if you follow that web address there at Hodder Education, contact us. If you please make contact with them, you can ask them for some inspection copies. You can ask them about the e-learning and the electronic versions of these books. They also sell them as packages for providers. So there's a lot of good, useful links in that link there on contact us. So please investigate some of those, and that'll support your learners and your delivery as tutors. There's some snips from previous books, just to give you an idea of the quality and the illustrations that are contained within those textbooks. We've also got Smart Screen. So we've got a full Smart Screen package with schemes of work, lesson plans, PowerPoints, worksheets, activities. And again, I've just put a couple of snips in there of the type of thing you would see on the PowerPoint presentations. So these are written to the qualifications. They do make it a bit easier for tutors to have access to that teaching material. We would always say, don't just stick to this. You're professional people, you're from the trade, you understand the trade. Add to this, build on top of this, build in your own experiences in your teaching. This is just a starting point, if you like, to support you building some of those lessons, but don't feel restricted by them. They're just there as your support. We also have Enhanced Smart Screen, which I think I've got on the next slide. To investigate this further, if you don't have this currently, please speak to your business manager, or there's an email address there on the screen, digitalsales@sittingills.com. So please have a look at that email address and send in an expression of interest if you want to investigate any of the content that you can see on the screen. That's the Enhanced Smart Screen. So it's designed on the Level 2 and Level 3 Plumbing and Electrical 8202 and includes various videos and questions that follow those videos. So they've been very useful. Centres who've used them have always given me good feedback, so that's quite positive. Training manuals. So you'll see these written as apprenticeship training manuals, but of course they support with any program of study really. If you're on a plumbing or electrical course, training activities for learners who are brand new to the industry, going all the way to the end of an apprenticeship, the journey in the early stages is certainly the same. That some of the basic frames that you would build and fittings. So if you're looking for some training activities in your workshop for your learners, you could access these. These are accessed again through Smart Screen. They're downloaded as a writable PDF, so that they can be printed off or they can be used digitally. They can be shared on your own systems and so on. So some really good training material there. It's also a good measure. So if you're being asked about your learner progress, you can use this as a measure as to how well the learner is progressing. Stay updated form. We pushed this a couple of years ago, but we really need more people to complete this. When there's ever any updates to technical qualifications, we have a contact list who've previously completed this form and it's sent out to them. So this is purely for technicals. So if you're involved with technicals, please look at that link when I share it or when you download it from the handouts. And just update your information on there. We can get 2, 3, 4, 5 from the same centre. That's fine. We can merge that. Don't worry if your centre's already completed it. But try to use those and try and put as many email addresses on as you can. Send it to Technicals Quality, and we can then make sure that you're receiving these specific technicals updates. We still have email updates, which is our general way as a BSE team of updating all the providers. So yeah, please consider registering for that as well if you haven't done so already. If you don't know where that is, it's on the bottom of any web page on the right hand corner, and I think it's called email alerts. So click on that. If you struggle to find it, please email myself. I'll drop it in the questions tab and we can find that link for you. So further support, we've put the emails in there of myself, Rob Mallander, and the General Building Services email address. We've also got technicals.quality. So any issues with uploading, access to any of the documents or assessments, wondering about moderation, wondering about when your moderator will be out, please contact technicals.quality. Always copy us in. We can help push that along a little bit. And please see the link there to the webinar. In fact, I might be able to copy of that and drop it in the chat as well. It might be easier. I'll do that in a moment when we get to the end. Only a couple of slides left. So there's plenty of contact there for following up. So I've gone through quite a lot there. I suspect there may be some questions. I hope you found that helpful and useful. If you're brand new to it, it can be quite overwhelming. There is a lot to pick up on new qualifications, particularly when it's such a change. But that's why we do these webinars. That's why we're here sharing these contact and support email addresses, so you don't feel isolated when you're delivering this. You can stay in touch. There's probably is some further reading after this with the various links. We couldn't have gone into all of those documents in great depth. We would never be time on one webinar, but we can follow this up in future with calls with teams or future webinars in the new year as we're getting towards the assessment side of things. So what I'll do now then is I'll have a quick look at the questions and hopefully we can start working through those. Have many popped up, Phil?
No, there's only one question. First question was, when doing assignments, can you do your own design paper, i.e. using Excel for CPN or block diagrams?
Okay. Phil, when you've been moderating, has that been permitted before?
So for the plumbing ones, we haven't really. The qualifications pretty much designed with everything that they need within the download pack. So we don't really want centres doing their own thing, because it's then difficult to interpret when we do provide a standard. However, what I would suggest, you will get a moderator visit. You know you're going to get a moderator visit. Talk to your moderator, show them what you plan to use and the reason behind that. And if your moderator agrees with it when you're uploading that sample and you've agreed that, I can't see that being a major problem as long as you've agreed it prior to.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you. So the next one, been contacted by a centre and they're asking why the synoptics are released after financial planning. Well, the synoptics are released at the start of the year and they may be amended, but they'll only be amended slightly. I can't see them having a major impact on cost, the change. And generally, the synoptics are one assessment compared to the VRQs at the moment, which are multiple assessments. So I would assume, therefore, that running a technical is cheaper than running a VRQ because the amount of mandatory assessment material that you centres would have to purchase. So hopefully the synoptics already out. It's out in, I'm pretty sure it came out in September. So it was out right at the start of the year. And the cost of them will be very similar each year, I would suspect. You know, it'll be different and there'll be a cost involved, but I can't see those costs altering dramatically. And if you've run the BRQs before, you're likely to have the majority of the appliances that you require to run those anyway. So hopefully the impact isn't major on that. States on the website, last registration date is December 23. Will this date extend? And if not, does it mean we cannot register students after this date? I think there's sort of two dates, isn't there? There's the date, we'd have to look on the checklist. I haven't got it up in front of me. But if you don't register by the end date, there's a late registration fee. And then obviously there would have to be a cut off at some point because we need to manage the synoptics. So I would have to double check those dates. If you don't mind dropping me an email and also technicals.quality, I can look after this webinar and just double check those dates for you. If I get time on this, I'll have a look whilst we're on the webinar, but I'll make sure you get an answer to that. But anything about sort of registration dates and booking dates and things like that, Technicals Quality is normally the best team to ask, because that is the role is to look after that, the quality of that delivery. So they know the dates off the top of the head. But we'll get you an answer. Is the presentation available? Oh, sorry, Phil, did you?
I was just saying more questions are bouncing through now as we talk. Is the presentation available? And the links contained within it, will that be sent out?
They're in the handout section now. If you go to the right hand side of your screen, you'll see a handout section. if you click on that, you'll see two documents. One is a copy of this presentation, and one is a Word document of all the key links. So you can download both of those from this webinar now.
And will the theory exam questions be based, it's an electrical based question, on the Brown Book BS 7671?
And I know they're based on the most recent version, so all the assessments will all be based on the most recent version that's available now.
Okay.
So hopefully that answers the question. What's the progression route after the 8202? Does this map into a standalone MVQ? Yes, if you go on to either the 9189 or 5357 webpage, you'll see a exemption document. That will tell you what the learners are exempt assessment-wise from doing when they progress into an apprenticeship. So yes, there is an exemption document, and it covers all qualifications, not just 8202. So any various qualifications a learner may have, all the information is there. Again, we can maybe try and find a link to that, or I can follow up with it. Or if you struggle to find it, let me know and I'll make sure you get access to that. But if it's whichever qualification it is, Plumb-Elec, we'll go onto the apprenticeship webpage. It's Sitting Guilds. It's normally under additional resources, and it's called an exemption document because it's the assessments they are exempt from. Will there be an update to the scheme of works and PowerPoints in line with current regulations? I think they're being viewed now, so I think a lot of them have already been done, and some are still being finalised. We've got so many different programmes. I do get updates from our publishing team, and I can't remember off the top of my head where this one's up to, but I'm pretty sure they're all either up to date or in the process of being updated. And actually, it's a good time probably to mention that, you know, the PowerPoints and worksheets, use them as your base. You know, if you spot things that are wrong, please let us know. We'll amend them. But you equally can amend them yourselves when you download them. You can add to them. You know, they're a good base document to help. But we are keen that you're professional in your trade areas and that you can add quality material that you develop yourselves as well. And a good place to share those would be the LinkedIn group. If more people share things, it reduces work for everyone. Is there a third series for certain circumstances, specifically theory? Yes, the learners could take a third assessment, but that would be the year after. There's only 2 booked sittings per year. So that exam dates are the only exam dates. Now, whether that changes in the end, they put on the 3rd sitting. If memory serves, we did through COVID because of some issues, but I may be. So I'm pretty sure we did last year, didn't we?
We did a 3rd series this year as a reset. Something to be aware as colleges is that 3rd series will make you roll the learner over into the following academic year. So therefore no achievement in that year, and you're carrying a learner forward, and then you must have them on classes and registers, should be qualified for funding. So it would be extreme circumstances where you actually want that learner rolling over for the 3rd series as the exam. So consider it as 2. And you know, there is nothing in the system at this moment in time for a 3rd series in the 22-23 8202 model. It was put in this year as a backtrack because there was still some COVID effects from the learners' starting points.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Just remind me, yeah, there was an autumn series, wasn't there? But funnily enough, the numbers weren't huge on that, and I suspect, as you say, because it falls out of that academic year, many learners may have moved on by then anyway. So, yeah, thanks for that update. Will the smart screen materials be updated for the 2nd Amendment? Yes, that's, as I said earlier, it's either been done or it's in the process of being done. So, yes. How long will the 8202 continue to run for? Is it worth centres who have not yet started making the move? Well, we'll continue with the 8202. There's no plans to finish with it, but I suppose the question is always around changes in government funding and the direction. We've got T-levels. T-levels have a very similar assessment approach to the technicals, so many have used this as a stepping stone and to get staff and centres ready to offer T-levels. So it's really, I suppose, up to each individual centre to make that call, really. There are some reviews and we are looking at development in line with guidance on potentially new qualifications in the future. But as ever in education, it's hard to put actual dates on things. So I'd look at the 802 as being a good qualification that feeds into the MVQ. It's a stepping stone into the delivery style for T-levels, and it's a current funded qualification.
So how will you know how to find out if your moderator is? So your quality team or your quality advisor within your centre will be contacted from end of December, beginning of January by your moderator, and then your quality team should pass that down to your individual curriculum areas to make contact, where you'll be asked to give 3 suitable dates. But the introduction will go to your quality nominee at your individual centre.
Okay, last year there's a few issues with exams raised with sitting girls as soon as we noticed. Can we look at an exam to check quality after the exam has been sat? Well, that'll be up to the assessment teams, but when we develop the exams, it's developed by tutors such as yourselves. You know, they create the exams for us. They're often practicing tutors, electricians and plumbers, and it goes through a series of checks. So there shouldn't be errors. We realise that sometimes there are, and we need to fix those up ASAP. But if anyone here wants to become a writer for us, if wants to work as an associate or a consultant, there's numerous positions on our website for associates, and please send in an expression of interest. We'll share those for the assessment teams. So if you want to get involved in that side of thing, that is open for tutors to send in a request or expression of interest and become part of those development teams. So we're always looking to add further experience and expertise into our teams. So that may be a way, but I don't think there's any plan to show the actual exam afterwards. I've heard the funding for the level 3 is being pulled in 24 to force uptake of T-levels. Do you know if this is true? I've seen various things flying around, but I don't have anything concrete. I wouldn't be confident enough in saying what would be funded in a couple of years' time. But the general direction is that there's a movement towards T-levels. You know, there's been a huge investment in that as a route. So, you know, I suspect at some stage that is how the landscape will look for us. But when and exactly how, I personally don't have enough information on all of that just now. As things change and as we learn, what we will do as an organisation is update providers. So as things become concrete and we're more sure of the direction and the guidance from government authorities, we'll run various webinars centrally. If you look at our webinars, actually, there's a lot of central webinars on things like funding, changes, general things on technicals and other qualifications. Really useful registering for those, even if you can't make them. If you register, you'll get sent a recording of the webinar. So even if you can't make it live, it's worth getting registered on those. So sorry I can't be more definitive, but I'm sure you know in centres working with your funding arms that they have a difficulty keeping up, knowing what would happen in a couple of years' time. It would just be speculation. So it seemed to have run a little dry on questions now. So I won't keep everyone here longer than they need to. I just want to put it out there that, you know, we do appreciate you taking the time out of your days to come and listen to us. We hope you found it useful. There is some further reading for you to do if you're brand new to it. There's a couple of things that we need to chase up as well. So we've had a couple of questions. If there's anything we've not answered quite right, I know there was one around the dates. Please email that in. We'll make sure we get that checked and we get the correct information for you rather than me try and quickly look and maybe get it wrong. We want to make sure that that's accurate. I suspect it's on the technicals checklist, but let's double check. So yeah, just a big thank you really to Phil and Phil Walsh for helping answer most of those questions and giving your input as a lead moderator, for everyone for turning up. I'll stay on just for a couple more minutes, just if just in case there's some further questions. Okay, there's a request about an update for some guidance on 9189. Yeah, certainly not a problem. If anyone wants any further updates on anything around BSE, what it may be easier is phone-wise, where I live, we work from home most of the time. I have a terrible reception, so I normally like to do everything through Teams. I've got quite a good internet connection. The wired internet is quite good, but my phone reception is very, very poor and drops out continually. So if you have rung me, apologies. Sometimes it'll just pop up that I've missed a call, but it hasn't actually rung. Please just drop me an email. It's probably easiest with some time, some dates, and say, oh, I've got a Thursday afternoon free or Wednesday afternoon. I've got a couple of queries on this. You know, just drop a couple of emails and times, and we'll try and tie up a quick Teams call, even if it's just 10 minutes to answer some quick questions. Not a problem at all. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone. No more questions, so we can look to close. Have you got any final thoughts or input that you could share with everyone, Phil, as an insight?
No, not really. Just that I've been having a look at the conversations as they come through. Some of the centres, you know, I've been in touch with quite recently for a centre visit. I know, Dave, you're going to be popping out on a few centre visits with us in the next coming weeks. So yeah, just you've got my email address, most of you. If you anything specific about the synoptic style or the aspect itself, or you know your moderator getting in touch with you, just give me an email, just drop me a line, let me know.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Phil. And let's carry on supporting each other, and I look forward to catching up with you all soon. All have a great weekend, and once again, thanks very much. Goodbye.
Take care, everyone. Bye now.